the first to know in Nsem-Pii TV.
Sir Jebekaya John Dramani Mahama suspended former Chief Justice Yemami Gertrude Torkono no eyade se or the Ghana ekokopie mu ewo the ECOWAS court. Say ECOWAS court enhwe na onka bi eman because ekwan a John Dramani Mahama ne NDC amanyukuo no ede no efaso no nani enye ho na Jebekaya okokopie mu ewo ECOWAS court no ECOWAS court etimi ema Ghana 30 days say Ghana filing the defense famra about asem Chief Justice Yemami Gertrude Torkono former Chief Justice ede ababet one enim no 30 days no ason eyade say Ghana lawyer penny yera Dr. Dominic Ayine ankwa ankopie mu ewo ECOWAS court ono nso a wankyere krata bi amfa nkomo mo say we ntimi emma entimuntu emfa enhye eda foforo wantimi ankwa ankoka bibia saa na Jebekaya Yemami Gertrude Torkono ekokopie mu ewo court no eyade se enioma bebre na okan wasem se ECOWAS court enhye na won emfamu akwanmu na emra na lawyer for esan etwere krata edekokopie mu ECOWAS court se Ghana enye won adwen se won ebeba be defend won ho dia ene court no emfa atemuo emra na mawre mfise se court no ede atemuo eba Yemami Gertrude Torkono ebetimi awini $10 million suit ede atia oman Ghana se yaba be file case ede atia mo se mumpo bibinti na mo ntimi amakra nka mo de momra mfa letter mra na meka bibi se sei ni se ntimi ama mo amfa ni anidie amfa ama ECOWAS court no amino eka se de one shot Ghana ebetumi atua $10 million ede ama former Chief Justice Yemami Gertrude Araba Isaba Saki Torkono.
Former Chief Justice Gertrude Torkono is urging the ECOWAS court to deliver judgment in her favor, insisting the Attorney General has failed to file a response to the case within the stipulated time. Her lawyers today filed processes alleging the 30-day timeline provided in the rules for responses to be filed has not been complied with by the country. Let's take a closer look at the reliefs the former Chief Justice is seeking from the court in this fresh move. We know that on the first case, she says an order of this honorable court, which is the ECOWAS court, entering a default judgment in this suit in favor of the plaintiff or applicant former CJ due to failure of the defendant respondent, which is the government of Ghana, i.e. the Attorney General, to file a defense. And for such order or any other orders as this court may deem fit, right? But what really are the reliefs that former Chief Justice Gertrude Torkono is seeking? Her main concerns include the court's rules requiring responses to cases to be filed within 30 days. The Republic has failed to do so. This means that the Republic has abandoned the case, has not shown any interest, which is why she's asking that the ECOWAS court rules in her favor. Former Chief Sophia Kufu has condemned the manner in which Justice Gertrude Torkono was removed as Chief Justice of Ghana, warning the act, which she describes as unjust and deeply troubling, will serve as a bad precedent for the image of the judiciary.
I'm very sad about it. It has really saddened me. And maybe in a way, I feel very distressed by it. Yes.
Mm. In terms of the conclusion that was reached, where the matter has journeyed from, is the sadness as a result of the conclusion, or you have questions about the procedure that took place before that?
The sadness is about the whole process. My sadness is because, as far as I'm concerned, it was a very unnecessary. We have been taken through a very unnecessary situation, and which, as far as I'm concerned, and that is my honest and candid view, this has so weakened the institution of the judiciary. It's not so much the individual who occupies their position. It is the institution. That is what I'm concerned about.
I mean, what informs the conclusion that it's an unnecessary process? I mean, we have heard even government spokesperson make the point that a petition was sent, a committee in line with the constitution was set up, they've looked into the matter and they've come to a conclusion. Which aspect of it, what specifically makes that necessary?
I think that, you see, there has always been something wrong with Article 146. And particularly with the procedure that it sets out, and especially as it regards the position of the Chief Justice. In the Ajay case, I took the opportunity to reflect on that weakness that I noticed. And are these and these are not so to me, they lack the gravity. They lack the gravity that would lead to a grave outcome, such as the removal of the head of an institution of justice. I've deliberately phrased myself that way. It trivializes the position, and I wonder what this is going to lead to further on along the line, because every judge is fair game and every Chief Justice is also fair game.
I mean, is that to suggest that you suspect there could be a ripple effect in that?
Oh, definitely.
Any matter?
It's not suspect. I foresee. Not tomorrow, maybe not next year, maybe not in 5 years' time, but along the line, yes, unless those provisions are dealt with effectively in a revised constitution.
Maybe a more direct question. I have seen the letter that was written by the Secretary to the President to the former Chief Justice.
And that's the other thing. A warrant, a person holding a presidential warrant. That's what the position is. You become Chief Justice because you have received a presidential warrant. You can receive all kinds of letters that you are hereby appointed. But if you don't have that warrant, does that make you Chief Justice? Yeah, okay. So if you're removing the person from the position, is it a subordinate who signs the letter? Is that the way it's supposed to be done? That's just by the way. Food for thought.
Yeah, but I've seen a warrant as well signed by His Excellency the President.
So why are they showing us that one? I've been receiving all kinds of messages, and every one of them is only bringing out that letter. And in any case, is it polite? Is it proper that it should be a subordinate who writes a letter of removal to a Chief Justice? Really? Really?
The Charlotte Osei matter has been a big conversation right now, so I'd like to deal with it. Now, the Charlotte Osei one, yeah? What was it about? The Honorable Charlotte Osei had been appointed by the NCC, had been appointed by President Mahama to be the leader of the NCC, National Commission on Civic Education. And she had done quite a good job. They had engaged her at that time in those days through the media, and I could tell, and anyone who engaged her could tell that she's a woman of ideas. That's you get that from Charlotte very quickly when you talk to her. She's a woman of real ideas. Now, after that, she was now appointed after Afarijan retired, And you know that Afarijan retired after the election petition of 2013, where it was felt that he was not able to discharge himself in a way that was loved by everyone before the Supreme Court. Nonetheless, he retired. And so there was a lot of tension in who becomes the next Electoral Commissioner, if you like, chairperson of the Electoral Commission. Charlotte Osei was appointed. Now, as soon as Charlotte Osei was appointed, there was a bit of constellation here and there, you know, within the MPP ranks about the person who had been appointed, and I took a personal interest in the matter. So I decided to talk to key MPP people. I'm talking about, this is about 2014, you know, to talk to important MPP people about why Charlotte Osei was a problem. And they told me something significant, and I share with you today. I never shared it publicly, even though I'm not going to mention names, but you can get the story. They said to me that they had been looking at the Nigerian election of 2015. If you know that Nigeria voted in 2015, we voted in 2016. They always vote. They are voting in 2027. We are voting in 2028. So the Nigerian election had delivered one of the purest elections in Nigeria. And so the Nigerian Electoral Commissioner, I can't remember his name now. Those of you who remember, please send me a text. Professor something. He had become very famous, and he had been to Ghana many times. He had become very famous for delivering in Nigeria, where they thought elections were never free and fair, what looked like a stunning election that brought Muhammadu Buhari to power. The election had occasioned the defeat of Goodluck Jonathan, the incumbent president, who was very close to President John Dramani Mahama because their circumstances were similar. Both of them had become president on the death of their president from vice president position, had won elections, okay? And this was Goodluck. Sorry. So, again. So the MPP had taken notes from Nigeria. And this important MPP guy said to me that when they spoke to the Nigerians, they told them that the first and major, most important thing that was done was cleaning up the electoral register, closing it down and opening up a new electoral register, because they noticed that the difference between the 2011 elections, which Goodluck Jonathan had won, and the 2015 had a significant number of people removed from the electoral roll when the new voters register was compiled. So they thought that Ghana also had the same problem. And looking at the election 2013 petition, it appeared that the electoral roll had many major problems, isn't it? So they wanted also in Ghana, with the new electoral commissioner, to decide that we're going to do a new voters register. So they said their problem with Charlotte Osei arose when, upon attaining the job, one of the first things she said was that she was not going to tamper with the voters register. That's rubbed on the wrong side of the MPP, and that is what I was told. Then began this avalanche of criticism of Charlotte and pointing to her bias, etc., etc. So that was there. That was a big story. Now, I had occasion to myself do an editorial on Charlotte Osei when she launched something, and I was quite upset with it that the elections are coming, where she was launching a logo or a brand or something like that. Okay, after that, friends of mine and friends of hers spoke to me, and we worked together, and I went to meet with her. She was magnanimous in burying the hatchet and decided that she would grant me an interview. But by that time, the whole big issue about MPP's avalanche on Charlotte Osei was a real big deal. Every day in the news, every IPAC meeting, there was fights between MPP and Charlotte Osei. And Charlotte Osei would stand her ground, and MPP would say that she's trying to rig the election for John Mahama. And she had granted interviews and said that there's no way an electoral commissioner can rig an election. Charlotte was the first person to say that. But nevertheless, there was a lot of pressure on her. In fact, when she granted me the interview and I interviewed her, and I'm going to show the tape in a minute, I had to ask her whether she would vote, because this was the level of the tension within the Charlotte Osei and MPP NDC conversation, whether she was going to vote. Listen to what she told me when I had to ask her whether she was going to vote. Would you vote? Would you exercise your rights to vote on voting day? Because we've been talking about this symbolism of impartiality of the referee in such a tense mistrust, as you put it, this kind of atmosphere. Would you vote?
First, I will not be voting on election day like you. I'll be voting on the
special voting.
Special voting.
So would you vote?
No, I would not.
You will not vote?
No.
Why?
Because I don't want to. And it's not compulsory.
Yeah, it's not compulsory. You don't want to vote?
No.
Should I vote?
Yes, you should.
I should vote?
As a former chair of the NCC, I strongly urge you to vote.
But you won't vote?
It's a special privilege.
But you won't vote?
No, I won't.
Who should I vote for?
Oh, that is entirely up to you. But I would say that do not vote vote based on issues and based on where you want to see this country go and who you think can take this country to where you want this country to go.
That's interesting. Have you voted?
That was how important it was. I mean, it was such that we needed to ask Charlotte Osei whether you're going to vote and whether you're not going to vote. Okay, so in the end, she conducted the elections of 2016 and Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was victorious, and Charlotte Osei graciously announced the results in favor of Akufo-Addo. During his inaugural speech at the Independence Square, Akufo-Addo found occasion to single out Charlotte Osei for praise and to praise also the conduct of the 2016 elections. She appeared to have delivered the elections in a sterling way, and everybody was happy with the results. Anyway, then government of NPP starts. Of course, some people come up and say that there's still a problem at the Electoral Commission. The main issue against Charlotte Osei was that the petition filed against her to the president was filed by the staff of the Electoral Commission, the leaders of the staff of the Electoral Commission, some other commissioners. In fact, you know, there are about 6 or 7 commissioners, and the Electoral Commission is the chairperson. She's almost like a primus inter pares, as they say, the first among equals. So Charlotte Osei was a chairperson, and the petition was filed by people who worked closely with her and who were alleging that she had occasioned, through the work she did, procurement breaches. She had ignored this. There was clear, very bad blood between Charlotte Osei as the leader of the Electoral Commission and the 2 others who were with her. You know, so the petition was filed. Now, before then, there was a petition filed against Justice Kingsley Acquah. In the case of a J-Chum, that sets the parameters on what happens when a petition is filed against a Chief Justice, because we have not even thought about it. The Supreme Court had to settle the matter on how the prima facie is achieved when the matter is filed and it's involved the Chief Justice. When an Article 146 process is filed against people who are not Chief Justices, either they are judges of the Supreme Court or they are leaders of the constitutional bodies, Commission of Human Rights, Electoral Commission, and etc., etc., those people, the petition goes to the president, and the president submits it to the Chief Justice, and then the Chief Justice will settle the prima facie. So when the petition was filed against Charlotte Osei, and the learning was still new in those days, whether or not President Akufo-Addo was going to make the prima facie decision, people who were close to Akufo-Addo said to us that if Akufo-Addo has to make that decision, he would likely dismiss the application because he doesn't like these things. He doesn't like, you know, these processes. Anyway. But the new learning emerged from J-Chum that it's not Akufo-Addo who is going to make the decision. It is the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice, as I've said already at the time, was Sophia Ekufu. And so the petition went to Sophia Ekufu. Now, the supporters of Charlotte Osei, some of them were concerned that the petition going to Sophia Ekufu is risky and that they are most likely going to return a verdict of a prima facie has been made, and therefore the process should begin. Article 146 should begin against Charlotte, because it was widely rumored then that during his tenure as president of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama in the first term had on occasion recommended Charlotte Osei's appointment to the Supreme Court. The rumor had it further that it was widely alleged that this recommendation by the president as part of a list of Supreme Court judges, which included Charlotte Osei, had offended some people at the Supreme Court. We don't know who they were, but they seemed to be very influential people within the Supreme Court's bench and arrangement, that they had been offended by the thought that Charlotte Osei's name had been added to a list of Supreme Court judges to go through the Judicial Council and then eventually to Parliament. After the hula baloo and the razzmatazz, it turned out that cool heads prevailed, but cool heads prevailed so that Charlotte Osei's name was removed from the list. So those who knew this information, those who had alleged this information, suggested that Charlotte Osei's name going back to the Supreme Court for a prima facie determination was going to be very difficult for her. I don't know the validity of that and whether it's verifiable. But anyway, this was rumors that was wide around there. You know, those of us news reporters, we always hear these things. So the petition went to Sophia Ekufu. Sophia Ekufu made a determination that the prima facie case has been found. And then the trial started. The people who had petitioned themselves were also impeached. As you know, the 2 people who had petitioned, who were staff of the Electoral Commission, commissioners of the Electoral Commission, were also impeached. But they were represented, as the trial started and we got to hear, they were represented, very importantly, by somebody that's surprised Charlotte Osei a little bit. It was Mr. Maxwell Opoku-Agyeman, who had been a director of the Ghana School of Law. In fact, Maxwell had his own problems with the Ghana School of Law. It is rumored that he was removed as the Director of Legal Education on disciplinary grounds, and friends of Charlotte Osei called that poetic justice. Maxwell Opoku-Agyeman was now the lawyer for the petitioners against Charlotte Osei, and Maxwell was mates with Charlotte Osei at Legon, and it's said that people who were their mates in the class called up Maxwell and said, "But why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? What's that? This and that and that and that." Charlotte herself, I understand from friends of hers that she was very disappointed to have a Maxwell Opoku-Agyeman leading the charge against her, somebody that was her mate, blah blah blah. Anyway, so Maxwell was the lawyer for the people. Now, the case proceeded. And at the end of the day, it came out that the recommendation had been made. When the recommendation was made, new learning came up again from Ejechum that President Akufo-Addo has no role to play. Once the decision has been made, he has to just, announce the decision. That's really what it is. The only difference is that the committee make the decision, they send it to the president, and the president announces the decision. He doesn't do anything beyond that. That's the learning that was given to us, coming from Ejechum and those who are scholars and theorists of Article 146. Now, Charlotte Osei was removed. Today, we are hearing that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. So you move Charlotte Osei, you move all of that. But the only slight difference that we like to point out, because we are trying to put out an intellectual